speaker is McCluskey, the leader of my union. I'm very proud to have him here tonight and to be able to introduce him. The leader of the UK's biggest union. He's been a member of the Labour Party since 1970. He joined the Transport and General Workers Union when he started working on the Liverpool docks. And that's the sort of person we want in the Labour Party and who we want as a leader of the trade union and a leader of the Labour Party, a Liverpool docker. I'm not quite sure what more I can say because I'm filled with admiration for this man and I just really don't know how the best way to introduce him, so I'm just going to pass the mic to him.
You need the mic, or can you hear me without it?
Well,
hear me without it, okay. Actually, Liz Snape at the back from Unison, when you announced that Unite was the biggest union, she went like that to me. It's great to have Liz here and indeed other comrades from other unions. You know, I always love following Owen Jones because he makes it so easy, having spelt everything out for you. I don't need to go over the alternatives, which he's very eloquently pointed out, and the work he's doing for class is first class. But the reality is that Owen, going around the country at the moment, is capturing the imagination of all kinds of people, including young people. You do a great job, Owen, and thank you for what you do. So I'm just going to concentrate my contribution on the title of tonight, Can the Unions Move Labour Left? Well, I know that Maria and Simon will have made a contribution in a positive sense to that, and I'm going to add to it. My answer is yes, we can move Labour left. We have to move Labour left. But let's be honest about the task that lies ahead of us. Because the truth of the matter is, there are thousands, tens of thousands of our activists throughout the trade union movement who tell us that the Labour Party's dead. Dead as Monty Python's parrot. And why are we pushing so much money in it? When I was running for General Secretary in Unite, and I had a wonderful experience being able to go to hundreds of meetings and meet thousands of Unite's activists, there wasn't a single meeting that I went to that didn't ask the question, why are we still paying this Labour Party so much money? That's the truth. If in my union tomorrow we put out a question to our activists and our members, would they like us to continue affiliation to Labour, and we took a neutral stance, the reality would be we'd probably get a no vote back. So the task that lies ahead of us is a huge one because of the betrayal of 13 years of a Labour government. 13 years of a Labour government that was locked in to the orthodoxy of neoliberalism, the continuation of Thatcherism, and the distancing of collectivism. You know, people say to me, oh, that Tony Blair, he hated trade unions. I don't believe Tony Blair hated trade unions. I don't believe he understood trade unions. I believe one of the characteristics of New Labour was about individualism, and they don't understand collectivism. Collectivism is at the very heart of the trade union movement, and I would suggest at the very heart of the Labour Party, or should be. And so what happened in Labour, and John has had to live through it day in, day out, one of the few MPs who has consistently stood shoulder to shoulder with working people and who has consistently argued with pride his trade union membership. But he has seen at first hand the project that New Labour launched upon our party, which was to take away the very heart and soul of what we stand for. That spirit of decency, of community, of collectivism, and the ideals of making a fairer Britain and a peaceful world. Irreversibly shifting the balance of power in favour of working people. So, when I was being asked the question, and when we debated it within our executive, well, what is the point? Is the Labour Party dead? My answer consistently has been no. They haven't succeeded yet in sucking away the soul and the spirit of our party. It is still our party, and it's still the party that our class identify with. Yes, millions got disillusioned and drifted away, The problem is they never drifted away to more left-wing parties. In fact, if they drifted anywhere, they drifted to extreme right-wing parties. Last election, Gordon Brown, perhaps the only good thing he did was when he made that appeal to working people to stay with Labour. And millions did. Not sufficient to keep us in power, but certainly sufficient to stop the Tories winning. And so we have a duty, I believe, for our class to make certain that we try to wrest back out of the hands of New Labour our party. It was the trade union movement at the turn of the last century, and I'll come back to this in a moment, Claire, that sat down like we are and said, you know what, we're doing all right on the industrial front, we're building our organisation, but we need a voice within the political arena, and from that, the Labour Party was born. And the question always needs to be asked, well, does the Labour Party still speak with our voice? Well, most comrades on the left would say no. And therefore, we need to see how we can go about winning that party back so it speaks with our voice. And in Unite, in Unison, in the GMB, in other unions, the CWU, we're working together in order to try to see at the very grassroots level whether we can persuade, first of all, activists to rejoin the Labour, because in my union, thousands of our activists left the Labour Party. The very people that we're going back to now because we have a political strategy that says if we are serious about recapturing our party, then we have to do something about it. John, I don't know how long LRC and reclaiming the party has been going. We've been members of it. Somebody said to me, well, hang on, you've been saying this for years and years. What have you done about it? I'll give you the answer from my union. Nothing. Nothing. We supported the campaign, we were involved in the rhetoric, but we did absolutely nothing as a union in any practical sense. Because if we are to reclaim our party for our values, then we have to do it from the grassroots level. And our task at the moment is going out and getting members to join the Labour Party so that they can be active at constituency Labour Party level, so that we can reclaim the regional Labour parties, the national Labour parties, the national conference, so that we can build. And what we're looking for, and we're talking as sister unions together, is to create a common narrative, because common narratives are incredibly powerful. This saying of there is no alternative, which we first heard the sinister nature of it back in the days of Thatcher, there is no alternative to the destruction of our manufacturing base and the decimation of many of our communities. Now being peddled again, there is no alternative to austerity. It has an impact, because everybody says it, the newspapers say it, political parties said it. You know, in the last election, all political parties went into that last election, including Labour, with an austerity programme. And that there is no alternative sinks in to the psyche of ordinary people. And we have to develop a common narrative so that when we're trying to win over our members to join Labour, and they ask us the question, and I've been asked this question by lots of our activists, lots of my mates who left me, and I've said, you've got to rejoin, and they've said, you must be joking. We got out of that Labour Party because they're a bunch of sellout merchants, they betrayed us. Why would we want to go back in there? And we have to have a common narrative and an objective to explain, because we're going to do something. We're going to seriously have an impact on changing the party once again, of winning values back that we believe are essential. Now, how difficult a task that is, I don't know. One of the best things, Claire, that I said when I was running for General Secretary, and I've used it a lot of times since, is I don't have a magic wand. In my union, I can't wave it to, you know, right all the wrongs. And similarly in society, we have to work together. We have to work to a particular objective. And given the amount of time that New Labour's project has been in our party, and it's endemic in the Labour Party, their disrespect for trade unions is endemic, not just at the Westminster level, but right the way through. Liz will tell you about the battles that are taking place in Labour-controlled councils who are attacking facility time. Because, what does it matter, trade unions? It's endemic in the party and it's deep-rooted, and we will have to work hard to turn it back. Someone asked me the question, but hang on, what are you asking us? To wait another 10 years? No, I'm not. I'm not, because I think if we tackle this together in a purposeful fashion, then we can see changes come through very quickly. I have to say about Ed Miliband, who my union supported and I personally voted for, I think he's a decent man, and I think that he wants to listen. Now, our task, our role, Dave Prentice, Paul Kenny, myself, other union leaders, trying to talk to him, trying to persuade him that he needs to create a radical alternative, is having an impact. Occasionally they make silly comments in their balls, but we try and pull them back on track. And it's about trying to get over the message that if they are serious about becoming Prime Minister and forming the next government, then the only way that they can do that is to create a radical alternative. The type of radical alternative that Owen has just spelled out. And our job is to influence that move to the left, to influence it, to make certain that working together, we have working class candidates coming through, challenging that of the likes of Progress. You know, huge amounts of money being poured into Progress so that they can continue with their new Labour philosophy. Very well organised, very professional, and we have to work twice as hard to try and make certain that we can get our voice, our values, back into the PLP. The PLP, John, and you can confirm this or otherwise, I'm being told, is the most right-wing PLP that we've had for a long time. Although lots of them are flapping around because they're not quite sure. A lot of careerists, they want to make certain they stick their tail on the right kind of bandwagon. And we have to start to influence that in a much more purposeful way. I think we can do that. I genuinely do. But I'm not in the ballpark of telling lies to anybody. I've met Ed Miliband on a number of occasions and made it clear to Ed that my union won't be signing blank cheques. I know that's Dave and Paul's position as well, because we've done that in the past. And they took us for granted. Oh yeah, they'll mouth off, they'll blow up, they'll shout at us occasionally. But when the needs come, someone will say, well, you know what, Labour, it's better Labour than the Conservatives. And I've said, no, that isn't going to happen. We are affiliated to the party. We're the largest affiliate to the Labour Party. We pay our affiliation fees. But we're not going to pour any more money into the Labour Party until we start to see an acceptance of trade union values, an understanding of what ordinary working people are being subjected to, and a commitment to moving down a radical path. Claire, I'll finish on this particular point. The question of trade union freedoms is absolutely essential to me. Ed Miliband, when I met him for the first time last January, said to me, Lenny, if I was to give you 3 things that our next Labour government would implement, what would they be? Or do you want to think about it? I said, I don't have to. They would be trade union freedoms, trade union freedoms, trade union freedoms. Now, there are other important issues, of course there are. But it's my experience that if organised Labour does not have the ability to defend what we have, to push forward for greater gains for working people, if we don't have that ability, then any gains that are given to us through individual rights, because the last Labour government introduced a raft of legislation that assisted ordinary working people, rights of representation, a whole raft of things was introduced, but it was all about individualism. It was workers' rights, fairness at work. They didn't understand that you cannot have fairness at work unless you have strong trade unions who are able to defend and make certain that that fairness is brought to fruition. So I have said, not in any macho sense, because I don't mean it this way, that unless Labour understands what is needed, we're not looking for much, we're looking for equality with our brothers and sisters in the rest of Europe. How can it be right that the very nation that gave the freedoms that Europe now enjoys after the Second World War, how can it be right that British workers have less protections than German workers, Italian workers, French, Spanish, and the rest of them? How can that be right? And yet we have 13 years of Labour government. So I've said that cannot happen anymore. And certainly, speaking on behalf of Unite, we're not prepared to allow it to happen because, let me put this question, and I'll put this to Ed. What is the point of Unite ploughing all kinds of money into the Labour Party and fighting to get the Labour Party elected in 2015 if 10 years from now we're still the worst protected workers in the whole of Europe? What is the point in that? Because whatever gains we make will be taken away from us. So our task is to work together. Because I was asked the question consistently, Lenny, I've heard your arguments and they sound pretty good. What happens if it fails? I've said to my executive, I have an executive that is a very left-wing executive, but they are taking my guidance and advice of where we go at the moment. But they have said, what happens if it fails? And here's the truth, these are extraordinary times that we are in. Extraordinary times that none of us have been in before. And the reality is that if we fail to move Labour left, if Labour fail at the next election to win because they haven't put a radical enough programme forward, and the leadership of the Labour Party moves to the right again, John, then what are we going to do? What are we going to do? I mean, Dave Prentice and Paul Kenny have got bruises all over them. I'm a newcomer and I've only got a couple of bruises, but what are we going to do? Accept another 5 years of banging our head against a wall for somebody who's not listening? And the question then will be, is the Labour Party the correct party for the voice of organised Labour? A Labour MP once said to me just before the last election, he stood down, I'm fed up, Lenny, telling these people, and he was pointing at some of the Labour MPs, I'm fed up telling these people that the Labour Party has no God-given right to exist. It will only exist if it is the voice of ordinary working people and the voice of organised Labour. So my message to you, comrades, tonight is join with us. Fight. If you're not a member of the Labour Party, join. Let's fight to get our values back in. Let's kick the cuckoos of New Labour out of our nest. And let's create a radical party for the future. Because if we are not successful, then serious, serious questions will need to be asked by left comrades like ourselves in order to give leadership to our class. Thanks very much.
For that excellent contribution, and I'm sure he won't mind me adding the one line that he forgot, which was, and of course, and if you're not a member of the LRC, join here tonight as well. We have forms at the back. I know that he meant to say that and he just forgot. Len